The Dallas Cowboys 2024 season is only a few days away. The Cowboys are visiting the talented Cleveland Browns. Cleveland had the best defense in the league in 2023. Defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz had Cleveland's defense playing on elite levels across the board. Dallas has their hands full in this one. In this video, I'm going to give you a deep dive into Jim Schwartz's concept on defense and present a case on how I think Dallas should attack them. Schwartz's scheme is amazing in dialing up blitzes, but he doesn't do it often. When he does, his philosophy is in some ways like Mike Zimmer. Oftentimes, Schwartz will use a concept called a spy blitz. A spy blitz is when a defender is near the line of scrimmage but is shadowing his responsibilities.
From the gun, Burrow.
A Cleveland player will look like he's checking another player in the backfield, but once the play starts, he'll unexpectedly rush the quarterback. The Browns will use this concept whenever Zeke is not in the game or in cases where one side of the field is overloaded.
Here comes pressure. Smith gets ready and fast. It's deflected.
Schwartz loves to do what's called the double A gap blitz, which is similar to what we will see from Zimmer on Sunday. The double A gap blitz is when two players blitz both gaps on either side of the center.
Lawrence out of the pocket.
I also find it interesting that on the outside it looks like Schwartz is a blitzing guy, but if you watch the film, he really isn't. The Browns was 13th in total blitzing last season. What Schwartz does do is calculate his blitzes so it looks like he's blitzing a lot. Here's what I mean. Let's say the Browns are facing an offense that's not good versus the blitz. Schwartz will throw the kitchen sink at that offense. But when he goes against a good blocking offense, he'll oftentimes dial it back. I did a statistical confirmation on this. What I found was interesting. If you go back and look at the Browns' first 8 games and calculate individual blitzes, the number came out to be 81 blitzes in their first 8 games. But when I looked at the number of blitzes Schwartz sent in the second half, I was beyond surprised. Schwartz's defense had over 157 blitzes in their last 9 games. They went from 81 blitzes to over 157 blitzes. Why did they blitz so much in the second half of the season? During the last 9 games of the season last year, Bears, Jets, Texans, and Denver was in the top 11 in sacks allowed.
As this very impressive start for Indianapolis continues, and here comes.
However, when you look at the first half of the season, they only played against 2 of the worst teams in sacks that year. That's the story. Schwartz is opportunistic in his blitzing schemes. When Cleveland played against the Rams and the 49ers, 2 of the best offenses in sacks allowed, they blitzed under 10 times. The exception was the Steelers, yet they still only blitzed the Steelers 23 times in 2 games. If we collectively look at the total blitzes against good blocking teams, the Browns only blitzed good blocking teams 1.64% of the time. Last year, Prescott was phenomenal against the blitz. He threw for over 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, and had an outstanding 120.7 passer rating versus the blitz. But here's the most important number. He only threw 2 interceptions versus the blitz last year and had a completion percentage above the expectation plus 6.5%. Like I said, I don't think he'll be blitzing Dak. If he does, Cleveland is going to have a long day. Also, when I researched the top 15 worst teams in sacks that year, the Browns played 8 of those teams. Majority of their sacks came in those games. Another aspect of Schwartz's defense is that he loves to play what's called a 9-wide concept. In a 9-wide concept, defensive ends are lined up further outside of the offensive tackles than normal.
They haven't been able to stop him.
On 3rd and 11.
This alignment is for a few reasons, but the most important reason is to generate crazy pressure on opposing tackles. When you look at offensive linemen, they are built to play in small confined spaces. They want to get the defender going backwards by using their leverage and long arms. What the wide 9 concept does is make offensive tackles play in a space on an island by themselves. It becomes athletes versus strength and weight. This is going to be a testament to how athletic our offensive tackles are. Myles Garrett's average time to pressure the quarterback was a ridiculous 2.32 seconds last year.
Here, on 3rd and 10, Garrett! 3rd down.
Lost the football. Area Smith with power. So you got the speed of Garrett coming off the edge.
2 seconds average time to pressure.
Also, whenever you see the wide nine concept, the Browns will most likely be in a sub-package alignment. So Dak only has a few seconds to get the ball out. The Browns will definitely run this if Dallas runs a full receiver alignment during any part of the game. Dallas has to be able to run between the tackles against the Browns whenever they are in the wide nine concept.
On the ground, looking to get into Cleveland territory, and he...
Schwartz loves to play man defense. The Browns had the 6th highest rates of man coverage in the league last year. They used single high coverage, either cover 1 or cover 3, at the highest rates in the league. Most likely he will use a nickel defense in a cover 1 or cover 3 alignment for lots of the game. I think Dallas can take advantage of this. If you want to play Lamb on the island by himself, then that shades in our favor.
When its best cover corner comes out, you immediately attack. They put CeeDee Lamb.
I'll take that matchup all day. Remember, in the cover 1 defense, the safety is playing the robber position in a closed middle field concept, which leaves the outside vulnerable. If CeeDee is going to have success versus the Browns cover 1 defense, it's going to be outside of the numbers. Look, I do respect the Browns, don't get me wrong, but let's push the brakes just a little. They did have the best passing defense in football last year, but against what team?
Listen, if you are the Browns, you are feeling very confident playing at home. You're looking at your D-line against their O-line and thinking, advantage us. You're looking at your corners, your whole secondary against CD. So this is a matchup where I actually picked the Browns in this one.
I researched the teams they played who were in the top 10 in passing defense. I found only 4 teams, and just one of those teams had a top 5 ranking, which were the 49ers. Yes, the Browns did shut down the 49ers offense, but remember the 49ers had just come off an emotional win versus Dallas.
End zone, touchdown, Kittle, number 2.
The Browns game was a trap game for them. Keep in mind, they didn't just lose to the Browns, but also to the Vikings and the Bengals.
To the end zone. He's there. Touchdown. Purdy steps through, floats it, he's picked.
In both of those games, the 49ers offense was held in check. The 49ers clearly had a hangover. On the other hand, the Browns' passing defense versus the Rams, the Jags, and the Texans told an entire different story. In Week 13 versus the Rams, the Browns' defense gave up 3 touchdowns. The next week versus the Jags, yes, Lawrence gifted the Browns 3 interceptions, but he also had 3 touchdowns. CJ Stroud didn't play in Week 16, so I initially didn't count that game. Davis Mills threw for 2 touchdowns and had a decent 81.4 passer rating against the best defense in football. When Stroud finally returned during the postseason, he was on fire. He too passed for 3 touchdowns. So what do we have? The Browns played a total of 4 teams who were in the top 10 in passing offense. The average touchdown for those teams was 3 touchdowns, and neither of these teams outside of the 49ers was a top 5 passing offense.
The safety runs by him, makes a great move on Ronnie Hickman.
The Browns outside of that hangover 49ers game haven't faced a passing offense like the Cowboys since Schwartz took over. I'm not disrespecting their passing defense at all, but let's push the brakes just a bit. This will be a struggle on both sides of the ball. Schwartz line is going to cause all kinds of havoc along the line of scrimmage. Twist, stunts, turns,
And he gets that penetration, and that.
Basically anything to continue to move and dictate the line of scrimmage. If Dallas is going to get anything done, we have to limit 2nd and long and 3rd and long plays. The Browns only gave up 28.99% of 3rd downs last season. That number led the league. The reason why they were so successful on 3rd downs is because of how good their passing defense was on 2nd down. Last season, they allowed just 171 point passing yards per game on 2nd downs, which is 2nd in the league. If Dallas is going to be successful, 1st downs are going to be critical. If you look at the Browns' success, it's come in the passing game. I'm a numbers guy. Stats are not the end of it all in football, but it can give you an idea of a team's strengths and weaknesses. As great as the Browns were last year, they did have weaknesses. I found out that the Browns were surprisingly not as good against the run on 1st downs as they were against the pass. They were actually 11th in the league last season. They were 11th in total rushing yards allowed as well.
Handoff. This is Mitchell. Cuts to the outside.
Oh, wow.
If we're going to do anything against this defense, the run has to be established first on the ground, and it has to be established on first downs. Another weakness that Cleveland has is that they are just too aggressive at times. Obviously, it works out for them oftentimes than not. But when that defense faces good play callers who understand how to use the motion routes, that is when things suddenly begin to fall apart for Cleveland.
A little bit inside and then throw it over the...
Dallas's motion offense has improved dramatically since McCarthy took over. At one point in the season, they were 7th in the league at snap motion usages.
Quick slant, and he's got Lamb.
If you remember, this is exactly how the Texans exposed the Browns last year in the postseason. They did a lot of pre-snap motion plays, a lot of misdirection concepts that attacked the Browns' perimeter defense.
First quarter, fake the pitch, find Collins.
This took away the Browns' pass rush and their ability to press at the line of scrimmage. If I'm the Cowboys, Lamb is moving around all game long.
For Stroud, good protection, loads it up, fires downfield.
If we go back to last season, one of the first teams that exposed our offense was the Buffalo Bills. Some fans, including me, swept that loss under the rug to bad weather. But I'm about to show you how brutal that loss was in a way that you probably didn't see at the time. One of the most important terms in NFL Matrix is a term called YAC, or passing yards after catch. Last season, Dak had just 52 yards after catch among his wide receivers in that Bills game. 52 yards. But do you see this acronym right here? It stands for intended air yards per pass attempt. In other words, how far did the ball intend to travel in the air regardless of the reception? The IAYPA versus the Bills was 7.7. So what's the big deal, right? I mean, Dak did have an even lower IAYPA versus the Eagles the week before, yet Dak had a good game. He threw for 2 touchdowns and had a 99.4 passer rating.
Escaping, throwing on the run, flag is down, his Lamb catches it.
So again, what's the big deal? That might be true, but notice how in that Eagles game he had 142 yards after catch among his receivers. The Eagles weren't giving up the deep ball at all. And for the most of the game, they were in a 2-deep shell, but they allowed Dallas receivers to run after the catch for 142 yards. During the Bills game, his receivers didn't have that same success. The moment they caught a pass, they were immediately tackled. So yes, sometimes it's good to have a low IAYPA, but if your IAYPA is low and your YAC is also low, that is a disaster for the passing game. The Packers game in the postseason was the same story, especially early in the ballgame. Dak had a better IAYPA and YAC against the Packers than he did against the Bills, but that was mainly because most of his yards were in garbage time. If you remember, outside of Dak interceptions, the receivers weren't getting any kind of separation after catching the ball until later in the game versus prevent defense. Mark my words, the Browns are going to play too deep against Dak and force him to throw underneath. If Dallas does not establish a run game, this will be a long and embarrassing afternoon. Dallas has to run the ball and stay out of 3rd and long. The more pressure that is generated on Dak without Cleveland sending 6 or 7-man blitzes, the more we will see Dak throwing interceptions. Look, I'm a huge Dak fan, but if there's an issue that I do not want Dak to be in, it's 4-man pressure defenses. Lamb, Turpin, Cooks, or whoever. They need to get YAC yards consistently. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm running the football early and often. I'm running screens and RPOs to bring those safeties down. As a coach, that would be my #1 priority. To me, Dak's deep game is one of his greatest strengths.
Going for the big ball. Wide open!
I'm rooting for him to get the job done. I believe he will. If the Browns play single high safety, that should play in Dallas' favor all game. Last point, and it's the most important one. If I'm Dallas, I'm keeping Dak's attempts under a minimum of 25. Dak is 26-3 when he passes the ball 27 times or less. In other words, do what's been working. Dak should not be throwing more than 30 times in this game. We're underdogs, guys, against the Browns. Who would have thought it? There you have it, my take on this up-and-coming matchup between the Dallas Cowboys offense and the Cleveland Browns defense. If you guys like this breakdown and want me to do more, let me know. Until next time, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.